right, hello and welcome to another Expert Insight interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, online sales magazine, and Pipeliner CRM. Joining you as usual from actually a rainy San Diego for a change, which is not a bad thing actually, given what's been going on. And today I'm delighted to be joined from the other side of the country in North Carolina, central North Carolina, by Jones Loflin. How are you doing, Jones?
I am doing fantastic, and I'm actually happy to hear that it's raining in San Diego because listening to your previous podcast and catching up on things, it's always I'm ringing you from sunny San Diego,
Yeah.
California. I'm like, Shh, stop that.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Well, we need the rain, and then
You do,
we need it
absolutely.
desperately. Laughlin, you've been a professional speaker for over 30 years and an author of multiple books. And your newest book is Focused as a Bee: Six Buzzworthy Strategies to Thrive in a Distracting World. And I love this because it is a kind of soapbox of mine about focus. And we're going to talk about how to focus in a world that's got so distracting. So, Jones, just give me the genesis of this book and why you wrote it, because I think such a timely book because people are just, as I said to you before we came on, people are forever telling me that they're the busiest they've ever been in their lives, and I keep saying, no, you're the most distracted you've ever been in your life. It's a different. It's different. If I went behind you with the clipboard and did an old fashioned time and motion study, would I discover that you didn't have enough time to do all the things you need to do? Or would I discover that you're letting your little narcissistic friends, get in the way?
Oh, I love that, and you're just so right, John. Yeah, the genesis of Focused as a Bee is my daughter and I began beekeeping back in 2019, and loved the journey we were having, what we were learning from bees, and we started saying, okay, what are we learning, and how do we apply that? And so we started applying some of the principles we saw them displaying and their work ethic and their habits, and one thing led to another, and now we have this book, Focused as a Bee, about how to improve your focus.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know much about bees, but I know enough to know that they're quite complex, and they're also, I think they have an incredible teamwork ethic, right? Where it's like if the temperature drops in the hive, they all work together to bring it back up again, and they have this great, as I said, teamwork ethic.
Mhm. Oh, they do. And every bee instinctively knows what it's supposed to do to help support the work of the hive at any given time. That's one of the things that amazed us about the bees is that they're all going about their one job that's in that season of their life, and it's hard to distract them. I mean, sure, you can knock on the side of the hive or shake it or do something, but in general operations, they are going to stay focused on that one job because they know how critical it is for the, pardon the pun, but for the hive to thrive
Yeah, yeah,
in
yeah.
that way.
And not to be recommended knocking on hives, I would say, but there you go.
Not unless you have your suit on.
Not
Got your
unless
suit
you have
on, you're
your
good.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't have your suit on, do not go annoy the bees. It's not going to end well for you. So let's get into what are some of the buzzworthy strategies that you learned from the bees?
Sure. The overarching one is that we have to give ourselves permission to focus. Bees
Mhm.
instinctively focus. We normally are distracted, like you said earlier, John. We spend so much time allowing so much input into our lives. We don't plan well, we don't prioritize well, we're tired, so we don't have the energy to focus. So we really have to start by saying, I'm going to give myself permission to focus. I'm going to be intentional about aligning my time and energy with what matters most. And then there's a
Mhm.
whole number of things that precipitate out of that.
Yeah, but what I love about that though is that idea of giving yourself permission to focus, because it's also sometimes we do things like somebody says, "Oh, I just need a minute of your time," right? And you're doing something, and then you go, well, it's just a minute of my time, so of course I have a minute to give you.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's not a minute of your time, because it takes you like 20 minutes or so to get back to the focus. So it's really a half hour of your time that you really gave up, and then that's if you do return to what you were doing, because chances are you may then suddenly go into something else and you've lost it. So as you said, giving yourself permission, but also the discipline to go, okay, I'm not going to stop being helpful. I'm just going to organize that help a little bit better.
Oh, I love that. And going back to your example, when someone says, "Do you have a minute?" and you say, "Sure," you do them a disservice
Mhm.
because you're not listening well.
Yeah.
They're probably 1 minute into what they want to talk about, and you're going, "Oh wait, what? Who?
Yeah.
What are they talking about?"
Exactly.
And so you don't give them the advice or the guidance or just the listening that they really need. And so
Mhm.
being intentional means when they say, "Do you have a minute?" I don't right now. I will have this afternoon,
Yeah.
or yes, I have 1 minute. Go.
Yeah.
um, but being intentional about saying, can I deliver my best efforts in this moment for the task or the person that's in front of me? And if not, it's about saying, what do I need to do to get into that position or that place where I could listen or focus on the work that's in front of me?
Yeah, I mean, it's much better to say, no, I don't have a minute now, but you know something, I can give you 20 minutes later and we
Yeah.
can actually go into depth. So let me ask you this question. Do bees multitask?
Absolutely not. Um, then that's this fascinating thing, and you've hit on one of my favorite parts of focused as a bee is the whole idea that bees have one job,
Yeah.
and they do that one job until they get to a certain age. I mean, when bees hatch out of the honeycomb, they immediately their one job is to clean the cell in which they were born.
Wow.
Then they go start feeding other bees, and there's a whole series of events, but they do that one job until by age they change to something else. Bees practice it when they are getting pollen. Bees practice flower fidelity. Now that's a weird term,
Yeah.
um, but here's what they do. If a forager bee is going out to forage, they might be foraging on this particular flower. They won't go say, okay, I think I'm going to go get some pollen from that kind of flower. And I'm going to get some pollen from that kind of flower. They
Right.
stay in that one area with that one kind of flower because that's the most efficient way for them to gather pollen and then take it back to the hive. So, yes, bees do not multitask. They know the value of single tasking and aligning all their energies toward that one job.
Yeah, and that is such a profound point though, because let's face it, we live in a world where people are waving all sorts of flowers at us, and we're like, "Ooh, that flower looks really nice. Ooh, that flower looks even better." And before you know it, we're hopping from flower to flower to
Yeah.
flower, and probably forgetting to gather any pollen or even return to the hive because there's always what the distant flowers are even more colorful.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's true, and that goes to one of the strategies we talk about
Hmm.
in Focused as Bee is the permission to prioritize.
Right.
Choosing what is most important for you to be working on in the moment, based on purpose or outcome or times. Because so often we don't prioritize.
No.
We think we can get it all done, and so we don't start aligning our time and energy with, okay, I can only get these 7 things done today,
Hmm.
and so I need to prioritize what's going to give me the best return on investment. When bees first start building a new colony, their focus, they prioritize building honeycomb. Yes,
Hmm.
some bees go out and forage, but most of them are saying, hey, what we got to do is we got to get some comb built because that's where the babies are going to be born.
Hmm.
That's where the honey's going to be made. That's where the nectar and pollen is going to be stored. That's most important. And I find so often, I'm sure you do too, John, is that people won't prioritize. They just feel
Hmm.
like they can get it all done. And so they don't stop to say what's most important.
Yeah, and no, absolutely. And I feel that sometimes that is because inherently as humans, we hate making choices. Because if we choose something by default, we unchoose
Mhm.
other things, right?
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
don't want to do that. We want to kind of keep our options open. So we want to kind of see if we can choose everything.
Yeah.
And that's why we end up getting scattered, spread thin,
Mhm.
never doing. And I guess the worst part, Jones, is we never get to do anything properly.
Right. Oh, so well said, John. We there's a phrase we use in North Carolina. I won't use it, but it's half something.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't give our full attention to anything. We are jumping from one thing to another, and then one of the challenges with that is that mentally it becomes overloading to us because our brain is saying, you didn't finish that. You didn't finish that. Got to go back and work on this.
Yeah.
Got to go back and work on that. And is it any wonder that we get so frustrated and we say we're busy because we are active, but that doesn't mean we're
Yeah.
accomplishing anything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We're hectic. We're running around,
Yeah.
activity, but not outcome, right?
Mm,
So,
absolutely.
so what's another strategy from your book?
Sure. Um, One of them is the permission to be unavailable.
Ooh, I
And
like that
and
one.
this is one that readers go, "What?" Because it sounds a little different, permission to be unavailable. But when we want to focus, there's 3 things that we have to make ourselves unavailable to. We have to be unavailable. We gotta work at making ourselves unavailable. One of them is internal thoughts.
Mm,
We've got to be able to control that inner critic. We've gotta have done the right things prior to wanting to focus, like, okay, making time to write down those other tasks that need to be done instead of holding them in our brain. So that's the first thing, what's going on in our head. The second one is being unavailable to our external environment. um, we've got these things that we keep close at hand, and then we wonder why we're trying to focus but we keep looking over at those devices. But that's not the only thing.
yeah.
Sites, what are you looking at? Think about people who are working remotely, who may be working in a home office, and they're trying to work on something, and they keep noticing there's a pile of clothes that haven't been folded. Or for me, if I was working from home, oh, there's the kitchen, I'm hungry. I mean, it's we that's the external environment that causes us to be distracted. There's lots of other things that we could
Mhm.
talk about on that, but the third one is the expectations of others.
Uh,
We have to be unavailable to the expectations of others. One of the things, John, that I really work hard with when I'm coaching teams is coming up with agreements on being unavailable to each other. To know that, hey, I need half a day today to not be interrupted, or I need an
mhm.
hour this afternoon, and communicating that out to your team. Not because you're saying, I don't want you bothering me. It's like,
Yeah,
what I'm working on is important to the success of our team. And so I'm going to need to be unavailable for,
yeah.
a period of time so I can focus.
And I love that because that's almost runs counter to the corporate culture that we all grew up in, right? Certainly I did from the when I came to the States is what are you celebrated for? You're celebrated for always being
Mm,
always being available no matter what you're doing.
yes.
Oh, I'll call them, they'll drop everything and they'll come and help you. And yeah, yeah, and oh yeah, don't worry, like give that to me. I've got 1,000 things to do, but sure, I'll take that on as well because I don't want to disappoint you, and I want to. And we all, and we're kind. And these hero complexes are kind of created where we want to be the hero all the time, and it's almost running completely counter to that culture. Is to say no, this is really important. You know it's important. The company knows it's important, and I need to get this done. Therefore, I can't be available today. And I think to this is great that you raised this because I think as leaders and stuff, we have to give people permission to get away from that hero culture, right? Of the
Yeah.
oh, no matter what, I'm here.
Yeah. And you said, I love how you just worded that, John. Leaders have to give people permission. I mean, that goes back to, working after, late hours or on the
Yeah,
weekends. Leaders can give their people permission by saying, I mean, maybe you're a leader that likes to work on weekends, but
sure.
you need to give your people to say, hey, I may be sending out some emails this weekend just because I need to get caught up on some things. I don't expect you to respond. In fact, I
Mm,
don't want you to
yeah, yeah.
respond. But I think that it's so important, not just for ourselves, but as a leader manager, what is that environment I'm creating? Am I creating that
Mhm.
expectation that people are always available at the surface level so they're not getting deeper work done? Or am I helping foster that environment where people say, you know what, it's okay for me to say, I need some time to work on this, and then I'll be available for you.
Yeah. And I think part of that then comes back to, you as a leader then saying, okay, am I getting the best quality work out of people? And if I'm not, is it their fault or is it a lot to do with me because I'm not giving them the opportunity to do the best work?
Right. Right. Absolutely. And so, we go back to that one job mentality.
Yeah.
If the leader's not doing their one job or the job that's most important to help their teams focus, then yeah, it very well can be they're the ones limiting the success of their team.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting too about that one job philosophy is what I love about it is we we tend to, and I say this ad nauseum, so I apologize to anybody who hears me repeating myself. But you know the way when we do like performance reviews, you know those awful things that corporate America loves, you know, performance, your annual performance review, and you come in and they say, "Oh, Jones, you've done this good, and yeah, that okay. Now here's 52 other things that you've done really badly, and I want you to work on now." And so we're always fixated on the things that you don't do good, the things
Right.
instead of going, "Hang on a second, let me come back to those couple of things at the beginning that you do really well. How do I figure out how to make your job almost 100% of the things that you're good at?"
Yeah.
Because if you're focused and if you're good at it, you know something and you enjoy doing it, you will do your best job. But if I keep forcing you to work on stuff that you're no good at and you don't like and you're not interested in, it's such a waste of time.
Oh yeah. Can't you imagine someone listening to this podcast, John, and picking up on what you're talking about there? Can't you imagine them sitting down with one of their team members
Mm.
who's maybe not performing as well as
Yeah,
they would like for them to? Instead of saying, "Here are all the things you're doing wrong. What can I do to limit those distractions?" Or
yeah,
what can I do to help you be able to deliver your best work? How can I insulate you from some of the distractions we have as a team? I mean, that's bold.
yeah,
But that's the job of a leader,
yeah.
you know,
Absolutely,
is to
absolutely.
create that environment where people can focus.
Yeah, and go find somebody who's good at the bits that this person isn't good at, because chances are, if they're good at those bits, they actually won't be good at as the bits that the other person is good at, if that makes sense. But you know, some circular logic in there somewhere. But you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like find try and focus people on what they're good at. Because like I
Mhm.
said, I mean with your bees, I mean the queen bee isn't going around telling you know the one who goes out to gather stuff, hey, you're not
Yeah.
cleaning the hive very well, are you?
Right, right. I mean, that's what's always fascinating. People always think about the queen bee in the hive having
Mhm.
this amazing control. And granted, from a reproductive standpoint, no queen bee, no hive. Okay, we
Yeah,
get that. But it's so decentralized. Each one of the bees instinctively knows what they need to do. And then if things change, then they communicate with each other. B to B, not business to business, by the
yeah.
way, for those of you who just started listening.
Real B2B.
But yeah, real B to B, to communicate what's going on, and then they take action in that
Right.
way. Yeah.
And so, and that's another interesting concept that you raised there. And I think this is something that organizations are starting to wake up to, or whatever. But that idea of decentralization, of getting rid of you know, having matrix organizations, getting rid of these hierarchical and bureaucratical, and giving people the power to take action, as you said, when they see there's something that needs to be done, something that needs to be fixed, that they're empowered to take action, that it doesn't have to go to a committee and take 10 years before anything's done.
Well, we talk about one jobs. I got to share this story. There are some bees in the hive that they are called soldier bees.
Mhm.
And their job is if they sense there's a threat to the hive, and they're normally near the front, or they might even be flying around close. But if they sense there's a threat to the hive, they immediately take action to try to eliminate that threat.
Yeah.
Um, can you imagine if they were in a highly centralized organization that there's a threat and then they've got to go into the hive and they've got to get all through the bees and get to the queen bee and say, there's a noise outside the hive. What should we, is it okay if we do something about
Yeah.
it? And by that time, it's too late.
Yeah. Oh,
Um, you know, giving people the opportunity to take action at their level to move things forward is so important in organizations.
and I guess that what underpins that is that the bees trust that each bee is doing their job.
Ooh, ooh, exactly. They have great confidence for if bees can have confidence.
Mhm.
They have that's it's as long as somebody's doing their one job, this person's doing their one job, then I can do my one job with confidence and not have to worry that I need to go build comb, guard the hive, pull out the dead bees, is what a mortician bee does.
Yeah.
You
Wow.
know that they can do their one job with confidence.
Wow. There's a mortician bee. Wow, that's fascinating.
Oh, it's the first time I'll never forget. I was standing at a hive and I was with a beekeeper and I looked down. I said, "Why are those bees fighting?" And they said, "Look a little closer." And sure enough, you could literally see this one bee dragging this bee off the landing board. And then, I mean, it was like a movie because you could watch him just, and then the bee
Mm.
falls over the edge.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. So what's one last strategy?
Sure, absolutely. The one that I think is hardest for many of us to do is the one to be consistent.
Oh yeah.
The thing about bees is they are so darn consistent with everything they do. How they build comb, how they communicate with each other, the way they collect pollen. Even the fact that I know that I could go out to my hives tomorrow, and if the temperature were to get up to 50 degrees Fahrenheit or more, bees are out. The forager bees are out there looking. Now they may not find anything, but they know, hey, temperature's right, the conditions are good. I'm going to go look, and they are
Mm,
so consistent. And what's amazing about that is even though they are so consistent, one honeybee only produces about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in its lifetime. That's not a lot.
no.
Um, but they have to be so consistent to do that, and it's the effect is multiplied because there's so many bees in a hive. But the power of consistency in helping us to focus, getting into what we didn't even talk about the honey flow state today, but how
Mhm.
do you get into that flow state? Well, there's if you're consistent in how you get there, you've given yourself permission to focus, you've taken the opportunity to prioritize, you've got a plan, you can more quickly get into that flow state, get the work done, and then move on to the next task. But it
Yeah,
all
yeah,
starts with consistency.
yeah. No, that's fantastic because yeah, you're correct. I mean, you can't get into a flow state without consistency, and you can't. Yeah, you can't start to have that kind of muscle memory where it just happens naturally, where you're not thinking
Right.
about it unless you're
Right.
consistent.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's so well said. Absolutely.
Yeah. So this has been fascinating, Jones. I'm sure the audience really enjoyed it. The latest book again is called "Focused as a Bee: Six Buzzworthy Strategies." I'm sorry, I love saying that. Buzzworthy strategies to thrive in a distracting world. But before we go, Jones, do tell people a little bit more about you and what you do.
Sure, absolutely. I've been a professional speaker and trainer for 30 years. In addition to being an author, the thing that I built my business around is helping people make the best choices with their time so they can thrive, both at work and in life. And so that's accomplished through keynotes, books, coaching programs, and training programs.
Right. And do you sell honey too? Yeah.
Well, we started selling some, but we ran out, and so
Oh,
now
right.
we'll have to wait until next year until we sell some more. But we actually do give away some when people buy multiple copies of my new
Well,
book. So
there you go. Yeah. Hey, listen, a book with lots of wisdom and a little honey. Yeah, that sounds like a good deal to me. All right. Well, listen. Thanks again, Jones. Thank you for watching and listening, and I will see you all again very soon. Thank you.
thank you.